I'm sure at some point of time in our lives, we've all been told, stay away from debt. Don't take loans. Don't borrow money. Use cash. Don't use credit cards. But is debt all that bad? It's like asking, is this knife good or bad? Well, if you give this to a skilled chef, he will cut onions beautifully all day long. But if you give the same knife to a crazy person in a foul mood, he could create absolute havoc. So it's not a question of is debt good or bad. It's just, do we have enough information? Have we educated ourselves enough? Welcome back to the channel, you personal finance nerds. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is debt. Now, understanding of debt is so important because if we look at this stuff, which is physical cash, there's only about $10 trillion of these notes going around. But if we look at debt, there's over $300 trillion worth of debt floating around. So whether you like it or not, whether you think it's good or bad, you can't ignore the fact that debt makes the world go round. Now, traditionally, financial experts, including the great Dave Ramsey, who's one of the modern day greats of financial advice, has told us to stay away from debt. And there's good reason for this, because if we think about it, while growing up in school in 10, 12, 15 years of education, we had sex ed, we had biology, we had chemistry, we had physics and math, but no one ever taught us about money. We never had money ed in school. We go about our entire lives trying to play and win the money game without as much as having read a single book or taken a course or spent a couple of hours trying to understand money. Now, even to get a driving license, we need 30 to 40 hours of training with a seasoned professional. But with money, we're able to take loans and mortgages and credit cards and borrow money without a certification, without any acknowledgement of any understanding of money. Now, just like that knife, debt has the ability to keep you extremely poor for a long, long time, but it also has the ability to make you extremely wealthy. And today we're going to break it down and understand the different kinds of debt and see how we can best utilize this to our own advantage. Now, the first one is credit cards. Now, this, even though I won't have an opinion on a lot of debts and I won't tell you what to do or what not to do, credit card debt is an absolute sin. And the reason for this is very simple. Credit cards charge you an interest of 40% annually. Now that is absolutely insane when you think that the US stock market or the S&P 500 has generated a return of just around 10% over the last 50 to 100 years. So paying 40% on any kind of debt is absolutely criminal. Now what happens when we take a credit card debt? It just means that we are using money that we don't currently have or that we are borrowing from the bank. Now as long as we're making our payments on time, all is good. But the minute we slip up, the minute we are default on our payments, the credit card charges us 40% annually. That 3 to 4% a month is actually 40%. And just to put this in perspective, if you buy a phone for $1,000 and you're not able to make your payments on the credit card, what basically happens is you could be paying over $2,000 in just 2 years of not having paid your dues. So as far as credit cards are concerned, yes, they are a necessary evil in our today's day-to-day life. We use it without even thinking. We swipe it everywhere, but we just need to be careful. Don't overspend. Make sure you're not stretching yourself and buying things that you can't afford or things that you don't need. If there are things that you feel are large expenses or outside your budget, make sure to pay for them by cash. But do not default on your credit cards. Make sure your credit card payments are up to date. Otherwise, you could be paying a very, very hefty penalty for not knowing what your charges are. Another form of debt in today's day and age is BNPL, which we see across websites. Buy now, pay later. Now, this is genius actually, but it's not genius on our part. It's genius on the part of the big institutions, the big organizations and banks who lure us into these little schemes and gimmicks. Now what happens essentially when you buy a pair of sneakers, which is $100, and you split them into 4 easy payments every quarter, what happens? It's basically you are borrowing money from someone. They are not charging any interest on the face of it. But if at all you end up slipping or you end up not having the ability to make this payment or you're traveling on the day of due date, what happens? You end up getting charged an exorbitant amount, and the penalties of not being able to fulfill or honor your responsibilities can be quite high. So as far as possible, stay away from BNPL. If you have the money, pay for it. If you don't have the money, don't buy it. It's also a scheme and a gimmick to actually get you to buy more stuff because they are making you feel like a $100 item is actually only $25 today. So don't fall into this trap. Do not expose yourself to financial risk that you don't need to. If you have the money, just go out and buy whatever you need to. Do not get trapped into these buy now, pay later or these equal installment plans that your credit cards offer you. So stay away from that. Now, another one is the personal loan. Now, this is something which I get 10 calls a week for. The bankers just call and say, sir, 4%, sir, 5%. But what they don't tell you is that this is a fixed rate. So the reducing balance can actually go up to 7, 8, 9, 10%, even 11, 12% depending on your credit score. So be aware, educate yourself, understand exactly how much you're going to be paying in interest. Now, I know there are times in life where we have no choice but to take a personal loan. There are family emergencies, but a lot of times I see people who have taken loans for holidays, for travel, to buy furniture, to do all kinds of these material expenses. So something as far as personal loans are concerned is we need to understand, are we using this for an emergency which cannot be avoided, or are we using this to create liabilities? Now, debt when taken to build assets can be extremely powerful, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But when debt is taken for liabilities, and what is a liability? Anything that does not add value, anything that does not grow in value, anything that does not put money into your pocket is a liability. Things like branded stuff, travel, holidays, honeymoon, weddings, all of these are liabilities in the long run because you end up paying for them and they do not give you any value back. So be very careful, educate yourself, understand what interest rate you're paying, understand how much interest you're going to be paying, and then take an informed decision. The next one is a fun one, auto loans. Now, auto loans typically aren't that expensive in terms of the interest rate that we pay on them. But this, for the banking and financial institutions, this is an amazing product for them, because what happens the minute you take a loan? The minute you take a loan on a car, you're in it for 5 years. And the minute this period of 5 years ends, what happens? You upgrade your car, and then they have you hooked for another 5 years. And most of the times what happens is we end up with a car loan for the rest of our lives. So from a banking point of view, it's an amazing product. But there's nothing right or wrong with an auto loan. We do need it. We take it without giving it any thought. All I'm saying is give it a little bit of thought. Think about what you're getting yourself into. Ensure that your car payments, including your EMI, your insurance, your maintenance, everything that goes into your car is under 8% of your monthly income. So if all your costs are below 8%, you should be fine. The problem is we overextend. We buy more car than we need. We buy an expensive car, and that's where the trouble can actually start. So as long as you're aware, as long as you know what your current financial situation is, you're all good. But if we don't, we could land ourselves into a lot of trouble with auto loans as well. All right, let's switch gears a little bit now and talk about mortgages. Now, in the last couple of years, with interest rates being the way they are, prices of properties have gone through the roof. Everybody seems like they're getting a mortgage or looking to buy a house. Now, with mortgages, there are a few things that we need to be aware of. One is how long we're taking the mortgage for. Secondly, what interest rates are we looking at? Third, we just need to be aware of what's happening globally in terms of interest rates, in terms of inflation. Because if we don't know what exactly is going on, we might get stuck in a product which we have no clue about. Now, just to give you an example, during the lockdown and COVID, when interest rates had fallen to 2.5%, everybody got in and bought a property. Now, a lot of people took a 1-year mortgage because they were cheaper than taking a 5-year fixed mortgage. Now, what happened in the process is, as soon as interest rates went up, the mortgages or the EMIs that these people owed were extremely high, or almost double in some cases. So be aware, make sure that you know what you're getting into in terms of mortgages, because these are extremely long. The financial repercussions of making bad choices as far as your mortgage is concerned could be catastrophic in the long run. Now, mortgages are something that we can use to build leverage, that we can use to actually create wealth. Now, if you are using a mortgage to buy a house that you live in, you also need to consider that there are going to be other charges. There are going to be maintenance charges on your house. There are going to be service charges. There are going to be bills and utilities that you're going to pay towards your house. Now, on the other hand, getting a mortgage to buy a rental property, which is a property that you don't live in but you've rented out to collect rental income, can be of great benefit. And what happens in this process is you have an EMI that you need to pay every month. On the other hand, you have a tenant that is going to pay you a certain amount of rent. Now, because rental yields in Dubai, for example, are close to 8 or 9% and the mortgage interest is around 4 to 5%, you have this gap which you can take advantage of. So most times your tenant will cover the cost of your mortgage and the cost of your other charges, maintenance, service, other things. So in this process, what happens is you create that additional income. So this can be used in the long run, because in the long run, property prices do tend to appreciate. In the future, you can use a refinance option and take advantage of your mortgage. But we need to again be aware of what we are doing. So the whole idea of this video, guys, is to ensure that we are aware, or bring to your awareness that there is a lot more to these financial instruments than we know. So take the time to study, to understand, and to educate yourself. Talk to financial experts. Don't take financial advice from your brokers and from your bankers, because most times they're trying to get something out of you, which is nothing wrong on their part, but we need to do our part, because it's a war between us and those bigger institutions. And if we don't take care of our end, nobody else is going to. All the best. If there are any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.